What up? Hey, what up? What up? Hey, what up? What up? Hey, what up? What up? Hey, what up?
And welcome to Luke G's Field Review. We're back at it with another field review, this time of Detroit Lions defensive coordinator, Paul Pasqualoni. Now, Paul Pasqualoni was also a part of a panel who was talking to Detroit Lions season ticket holders at Ford Field, and he had some very interesting things to say, and some of them I thought were telling. So let's see what we get out of this guy. We're gonna get this thing cracking. Let's get into it.
When you talk about stopping the run, that front four did a fabulous job this past season.
They really did, and obviously once Snacks came in, once Damon came in, it really made it very difficult in the middle of our defensive line for the offense to move those guys out of there. As that was going on, I really felt that we were getting better in each area of our defense. The defense of line was kind of setting the tempo. Ashawn was really doing a good job, very athletic. As Harold Nash said in the last segment, very strong individual.
All right, people, there go our first little tidbit. They talking about the run game and how Snacks Harris has changed the tempo and the identity of the Detroit Lions run game. Now, if you are a real, true football fan, you would know that that statement is true. You would know that Snacks Harris instantly helped change that. But he also said something that I think was very important, which was Snacks Harris changed the dynamic for each of the other positions, the linebackers, the safeties, the cornerbacks, and that is also true. But this is why I tell you people that the Detroit Lions will not be taking a defensive tackle in this year's draft, at least not at 8. If you hear how highly he talks about Deshaun Hand and how he's athletic and a very strong guy, and how this guy was coming in and doing certain things, he's pretty much letting you know that your D tackles is going to probably be Snacks Harris and Deshaun Hand. And then he'll probably rotate from time to time Ashawn Robinson. Now, some of y'all might say, well, Luke, you're reaching. But as I always say, don't be no chump, do your research. And I did do some research, and I did happen to notice some things that I just happened to go through and look at snap counts. What I realized was the Deshaun Hand snap counts went up significantly down the stretch of last year's season in such a way that I'm pretty safe in saying that, yep, he's probably going to end up being one of the starting D tackles, if not a starting D end. But let's keep on listening.
Deshaun Hand, as a rookie, really started to get better, really started to understand what his role was. Jared Davis, running the defense as the Mike backer, really took charge. And on the outside, on the edges, Kennard was very good on the one edge, and Romeo started to really come on the other edge, and we became a better tackling team.
Now, I know some of y'all probably started laughing when he said we became a better tackling team, because some of y'all believe that Jared Davis often whiffs on tackles. But there was something about Jared Davis that I think he talked about that we don't talk about when it comes to our linebackers too often, and that's the ability to run the defense. That's the ability to be a leader. It's one of the reasons why I have so much respect for Khalil Hodge. It's not just his physical ability, but he's a leader. He commands the huddle, and he knows his stuff. That's why he's able to make the plays he's able to make. But what I love about this is how he addressed certain players that he saw improvement in, and who Lions fans can identify with seeing improvement in. And I think if you pay close attention, what he's really saying is yeah, we hit home on those picks, but I don't think DN at the 8th pick, if we're stuck there, it's going to go down. Because he liked the Romeo Okoye, and he liked it Kennard. But we're going to see. Let's listen to him.
And that had a lot to do with how we got better. Gradually, as the season was going on, we were getting better. We were giving up fewer and fewer big runs. Early in the season, we would play very, very well for 30 plays, and then we'd give up a big run, which really, really hurt.
Hashtag facts. He's not lying about that. Any Lions fan will know that earlier in the season, people was running the ball down our throat. And there's some games I don't even want to bring up because it's too painful, i.e. the Jets. Even though people talk about, oh, Stafford lost to Sam Darnold, they forget that Chris Ivory looked like the second coming of Jesus as he ran through these holes that Moses was parting. But that's not none of my business. Just gonna let him tell you.
So once the defensive line started to gel, those guys started to come along, we started to get better. I think, as I said earlier, we started to get better. And our problems early on was not just one position. If the defensive line had a little breakdown on one play, then early on the linebackers possibly had a little breakdown, the secondary had a little breakdown. We started to play much better together as a unit. We started to understand the scheme better. We started to have a better understanding of who we were playing with, and we cut way down on the number of big plays we were giving up.
Ladies and gentlemen, did y'all hear that little small snippet where he talked about them playing better as a unit, them playing better with the people that they had, and how to make those people better in their defense? Didn't that sound like the same thing Darrell Bevel said? The same thing Matt Patricia talked about? Sometimes there's a growing pain. Now, I'm going to be the first to tell you, sometimes I don't want to deal with the growing pain. However, I will say this. He's right in this regard, that as a unit, they did get better. And they do need a few more key parts, but there were some breakdowns that led to other breakdowns in the unit. You know, like he said, when the defensive line didn't do their job, the linebackers got exposed. And when the linebackers got exposed, it exposed the secondary. So these are the things that we're looking at, but we're going to let him talk.
Did a good job, okay, in the end of not letting the ball, just simply not letting the ball be thrown over the top of our head deep. And as we finished the season, I thought we were really making great strides in those areas.
The back end of this defense has been very, very good.
Yeah, they have been, and there's been really good leadership there. And as I said, we got better as the year went on. You know, we played some great quarterbacks, you know, this year. I thought the guys in the back end played really well against New England. I thought we played really well against Green Bay both times we played them. You know, we didn't win that Rams game, but I thought that, you know, we were on the right track there, and we gave up a big run at the end of the game, and that really kind of hurt us. But
now, ladies and gentlemen, anybody who watched the Detroit Lions would know that, yeah, the Detroit Lions played really well against the Green Bay Packers both times. The Detroit Lions played well against the New England Patriots. They played well against the Miami Dolphins. They played well against the Los Angeles Rams. But what I find interesting about that statement is not only did they play well, those were, or at least the first Green Bay Packer game and the New England and Miami Dolphin games were the first three games where we had a 100-yard rusher. We had a run game. You know, those were games where we was running the ball. And when he talks about the secondary playing well in those games, you know why they played well in those games? Because one, the offense was able to control the clock with the ball by running it, and two, the defense was allowed to be on the attack while the offense for the opponent was forced to try to make a play late in the game. This is how the Detroit Lions defense is going to be ran going forward, ladies and gentlemen. But we're going to let him finish talking.
But our leadership in the back game, Quandre Diggs, excellent. You know, Slay, very, very good. Really started to play well together. Started to really get a feel for what we were doing back there. And we just cut way down on the number of big plays we gave up.
What is the Lions defense going to be in 2019?
Well, I think we would all.
Now, before he say what it's going to be, I just want y'all to understand that there's going to be a little fluff in here, but there's some telling parts that he's going to say in this little segment right here, and I just want y'all to pay close attention, and then I'm going to do my best to break it down for you. So let's get it.
Like it to be at one of the top defenses, really, in the National Football League. And there's a lot of statistics in football. The sack is a huge statistic, sometimes way overblown. But the most important stat we have is the score. At the end of the day, who won the game?
Hashtag facts.
If we had to choose one thing that we would like to be great at, and that's giving up as few points as we possibly can, playing a complementary game, which means we have a responsibility to get the ball to the offense. And John has that same responsibility.
Ladies and gentlemen, I gotta clap it up, because the only important thing about defense has nothing to do with interceptions. The only important thing about defense has nothing to do with sacks. Those are numbers that are tossed out there for fantasy football people. When you sit there and you hear about this many yards and this many attempts and all this stuff, it's all fantasy football talk. All it boils down to is a simple response, which is simply this: offense score points, defense stop the other team from scoring. If you go through and look at the most recent history of a football game, i.e. the Super Bowl, what happened? Yeah, some people gonna say it wasn't pretty. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was beautiful what New England did to them. Okay, I was more disgusted at the Rams and Chiefs game. I don't want to see a game with 160 points scored in it. That's not entertaining. That means there was no defense. There was no power struggle. There was no being on the edge of your seat on what's going to happen next. And when he talks about the most important stat being don't let the other team score, that's the only stat that matters. So when we look at the free agency and we look at the draft, understand they're going to bring people in who stop that. Now, I know somebody's going to come in here and say, well, if you're getting sacks, doesn't that stop them from scoring? No, because I can assure you that, a lot of games have come down to people being sacked. But that wasn't what got them to win. The sack is great, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, I need to stop you from scoring. When you go back to the 2000 Baltimore Ravens, they gave up a historical 10 points a game average. When you look at the 2002, or I think it's 2002, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they weren't giving up no more than 14 points. That's how you win these games. If you were to ask me, and I'm being honest when I say this, if I'm a GM or I'm a coach, and you were to ask me, and I'm on the Rams, and my defense only gave up 13 points, we need to win that game. See, what was happening in the past was Detroit Lions had a defense who can hold that, but the offense wasn't scoring because of bad play calling, because of no running game. But I'm gonna let him tell you it, because this thing that he said was so profound to me that I had to just go into it, because that's the only thing that matters. I don't want you scoring, period. If I can watch a basketball game where, matter of fact, let's take it a step further. Do anybody remember the Bad Boys, the Detroit Pistons, the Bad Boys? Do y'all remember how that team was beating people? What them scores was looking like? 70 to like 50, 88 to like 60. Do you remember? You remember the new? I ain't gonna call them the new Bad Boys, but the new era Pistons when we had Chauncey, Rasheed, and Rip and all. They was holding teams down, scoring 80 points. You look at this new NBA now, you're seeing 120, 136, 140 by both teams. So to me, he's absolutely right in that. But let's listen to him.
To put the ball on the short field a certain percentage of time, so they're not looking at the need of driving the ball 75 and 80 yards.
Ladies and gentlemen, the idea that he talks about complementing the offense and describes it by talking about putting the ball at a field position that sets them up to not have to drive the ball, that's turnovers. Now somebody's going to say, isn't that a sack? Isn't that an interception? It could be an interception. It could be a sack. Those are all good ways of looking at it. But what he's trying to say is if our defense is bending but not breaking, and it's forcing these teams to have to go the distance and then punt, which puts us in a position to have a shorter field. That is the ideal situation for his defense. That is what he has in plan for his defense, and that's what we should be aiming for, because it's not just the a turnover that gets you there. Sometimes it's a 3 and out. Sometimes it's getting off the field when you need to. Sometimes it's being able to set the offense up. So when people talk about these high-power offenses like the Kansas City Chiefs, the St. Louis Rams, which, by the way, did anybody realize that the St. Louis Rams never sniffed the red zone in the Super Bowl? Did anybody notice that? Because these are the things that people don't understand. Football is checkers. It don't have to be chess. It's a little bit more simple than people think. And all he's saying is put your offense in a more favorable position than having to go 80 to 75 yards. And you have literally complimented them and made this game easier for the team as a whole. This is the stuff that I talk about. This is why I don't listen to Stafford haters, because they can't come and show me proof other than their opinion that they got from a radio show. But we're going to let him talk.
On every possession, there's only 12 possessions in a game. If you average it out, the offense is going to get the ball 6 times in the first half. They're going to get the ball 6 times in the second half. We've got to do our part. As few points as possible in great field position. That's what we would like to do.
Hashtag facts, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it from our defensive coordinator himself. You know, he's going into an area that many people don't look on. But as a person who's played this sport and who's played at the collegiate level, even I recognize how many possessions go down for a team in a game. Now, sometimes you may get more than 12, but 12 is generally the average. And what you see is if you make the best of those 12 averages, you can do a lot with it. Okay? And so all he's pointing out to you is our focus is to shorten the field up for our offense and keep the team from scoring. And in my eyes, ladies and gentlemen, that's the kind of talk I want to hear from our defensive coordinators. Please share your thoughts and comments in the comment section. I love to read them. I do respond to them. But this is where this video ends at, and I hope this was able to give you a better insight of what's going on here. But until next time, don't be no chump. Do your research.